Well, for more on the voting process and when we can expect to know the name of the next president of the United States, we can talk now to Colin Provost. He's an associate professor of public policy at University College London. Well, thanks for taking time to speak to us here on the programme. Well, we've been talking about this for months now, but the key question is, when can we expect a result?
Thank you for having me on this afternoon, Tokes. Well, as you know, to determine the winner, we have to tally up the Electoral College votes from across the state. There's a total of 538. And whoever passes the threshold of 270 first will win. The question is, will we know the state results tonight or tomorrow morning? And in some cases, we might not know for several days, as they might not be able to project the winner right away. So, for example, in the battleground states of North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, postmarked absentee ballots are allowed to arrive some days after the election. So counting may need to continue before a winner can be declared in each of these states. And in Pennsylvania, as well as Michigan, mail-in ballots cannot be counted until today, Election Day. So that late start on counting ballots might slow down projections as well. On the other hand, Florida doesn't accept ballots beyond Election Day, and it's thought that counting will go faster there. So we might know early on who's won Florida, and that's a very significant battleground state that has 29 electoral votes.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you mentioned Florida there, because my next question was going to be about that key state there. And we've seen, of course, in the past that Al Gore's campaign, which of course fell foul of voting their irregularities he claimed in 2000, also for Hillary Clinton back in 2016. How much pressure is there on Joe Biden from the Democratic camp to sort of not concede in case things seem to go wrong?
Well, that's a great question, and I think that the Biden campaign is going to have to sit tight for the most part and see what happens, and ideally that's what both candidates would do, because we know that many states might not know the outcome for several days. Now, to some extent, that's premised on the idea that it's going to be a close election, right? It's possible that it's not going to be a close election, and maybe we'll have enough information without knowing all of the states. And in that case, it might be possible that we can declare a winner sometime tonight or tomorrow morning. But in terms of what Joe Biden should say or shouldn't say, that's a little bit more difficult. The president, on the other hand, has said that he might declare victory if things are looking his way. But as they count mail-in ballots over the coming days, or tomorrow and coming days, those are thought to be more likely to go for Democrats. Generally, Democrats are the ones who are voting mail-in. So it will be important in some cases to let all those votes come in, particularly where they're legally allowed to do so.
Okay, so patience seems to be the watchword there, at least for us, if not for the president and his rival. Let me ask you about the Supreme Court. We've seen Amy Coney Barrett was elected last week, changing the sort of the majority there, giving the Conservatives a 6-3 majority there. How much could that come into this process if the result is challenged legally?
Right. So I think that we only really need to worry about the Supreme Court if the election is close. If it's not close, if it looks to be a blowout one way or another, then most groups who would bring such lawsuits will probably not see a point in doing so, as flipping one or two states might not matter. But the closer the election and the narrower state margins are, particularly in some of these battleground states that we've mentioned, Florida, Pennsylvania, the more legal challenges we're likely to see. And obviously, these are the most salient court cases we can have at the moment. So these cases would be heard at the lower federal level, and depending on the outcomes, quickly move their way up, possibly to the Supreme Court. Now, so yes, the Supreme Court could play a role in a close election. Now, it's worth pointing out as well that the Supreme Court has seen its share of election litigation already in this season. And last week, they ruled, but partly because they didn't have a lot of time, that Pennsylvania could go ahead with extending its voting deadline to read ballots until after Election Day. Now, some of the conservative judges on the bench were a little bit reluctant to issue that decision, and they were not happy about the fact that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court had stepped in to partly tweak a decision by its state legislature. The more conservative justices on the court tend to believe that election law is written by the state legislature and not to be tampered with by the high court in the state. So if that is the sort of thing that's at stake, we might find a willingness of the Supreme Court to step in and overturn high court decisions in given states. But as I said, it's premised on the election being close first, and there being some ballot irregularities in some of the most likely battleground states.
Insightful analysis there. Colin, Provost, Associate Professor of Public Policy at the University College in London. Thanks for joining us here on the programme.